Hey everybody, this is David Skrika. So we're gonna have a 3-in-1 today. Sorry, I couldn't get you a stock chart of the day on Friday, and so on the weekends I'm gonna be obviously because it's the weekend, and I love football on Sundays. I'm actually doing this Sunday morning, so I don't know if I'll do it every Sunday. So what I'll do on the weekends, when I do a stock chart of the day, maybe I'll do two, or maybe I'll just do kind of a Friday, Saturday, Sunday with a 3-in-1. And by the way, when I launch my Patreon page for stock chart of the day, I'll probably do a special kind of market overview, weekly update for Patreon members. It's only going to be like $7 or $8 a month. I'll probably launch that September 18th. So I'm hoping you're enjoying these, and I'm not really looking to make any money off that. I'm just, if I could ultimately get a couple hundred people on it, just a little pocket cash and kind of a way to just keep the, an economic incentive to keep this going. And I'm hoping, like, you would think that this service is worth, 23 cents a day, which is what $7 a month is. So anyhow, what we're going to do, so we're going to have a 3-in-1 today, like I said. And so our 3-in-1 is going to be, we're going to look at, so the 3-in-1 is going to be, so sorry, I'm just getting my thoughts together here, is going to be, we're going to look at cannabis stocks. We're going to look at Apple, because Apple's had some interesting news recently, which we'll do right now. We'll show you the news, that's all. And then, and we're going to look at QQQ and maybe a potential topping formation forming in the Nasdaq. So, sorry, just had something in my throat there. I just had some crackers. So, anyhow, we're going to look at this right now. So let's look at what was going to start with Apple. So Apple looks to me like it could be topping here. It did bounce a bit on Friday, not much, 62 cents, but you're right here now at this support here. Apple basically went straight up all year. If we go look at it for the last few years, Apple, went down last year. Very choppy decline. It still went down. They went up to a new high, but really they're not growing. Like, Apple's had no revenue growth this year. They have obviously have the big stock buybacks and the whatnot. They are launching the new iPhone, but it seems to me like, I don't know, these new phones, I don't get it. Like, I think they have less and less of an impact all the time. And so we talked a few days ago about Apple's valuation, and it's pushed Apple's price to sales, price to earnings to the upper end of its range. So I don't think there's much. My personal opinion is this will probably flop. Like, who knows? Maybe it'll bounce. I think Tuesday, this coming week. So today's Sunday, so 10th. So Tuesday would be the 12th. They're going to launch. They're going to have the launching of that iPhone. So who knows, right? So, so we'll see what happens. But like, even if Apple does top, you can see it took a while here to top in 2022. Like, Apple didn't really crack till the end of the year, and really took this first months, because Apple is so widely held and it's the largest company in the world. It makes a lot of money. So obviously it's going to be like probably the last stock to crack. But we are seeing issues with their sales right now, that the Chinese government, and we're going to show you, I'm just going to get into Apple on Yahoo Finance, so I can show you the headlines. You're going to look at right here. Apple stock overvalued. I think it is. Yeah, the Chinese government is going to ban, and Hawaii has a Mate 60 Pro, right? So yeah, so and this is another issue I've always said now, we're in China, is that I remember in Hawaii, I always pronounce it wrong, came out with their phones. They were kind of just doing these cheaper versions of Samsung phones. Samsung used to make some phones in China, and China just steals everything. So I got no bones about saying that. They just steal everything. And so Huawei was this kind of this cheaper phone maker, but now Huawei is making these, like, the $1,000, $1,500 top end phones to compete with Samsung, Google, Apple, etc. Right? So obviously China, it's not just security reasons they're going to start banning these Apple phones. It's because their own phone maker, which basically has a big investment from their own government, is competing with Apple. So it now basically has essentially the same technology. And by the way, we can buy them Huawei phones down here in the Bahamas, but in the United States, you can't. They're basically banned again because of the association with the Chinese government. So China's going to fire back, and Apple's also moved some production to India, and I think they see India now as their kind of growth market. So, anyhow, yeah. I just think this is. I think we're seeing peak Apple, just like we saw peak BlackBerry, etc. And don't think they're going to go the way of BlackBerry. Obviously, I think it'll go more the way of IBM. Like Apple will just become kind of this stable tech company. It's a dividend payer, etc., etc. Because at some point, these companies just stop growing, and technology is like that. RCA was the biggest tech company for a while. When they were the first company to kind of do TVs and radios, and IBM was a big tech growth company, back in, the 60s, right? So at some point, these tech companies kind of stop growing. And when they stop growing, whatever, they don't have to go and completely collapse like BlackBerry or Nokia or Ericsson or something, but they can also become that. So I do think we're seeing peak Apple. I think this Chinese news, and usually there's some kind of big news items, like when Microsoft kind of lost dominance for a while back in the late 90s, 2000, was when the government did the antitrust lawsuit against them. So I think this China news could be that kind of news item. And like I said, you combine that with Apple being very overvalued, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. So the next thing we're going to look at is, a few months ago, I did a very well-received video, I should say, about maximum pessimism. A lot of people wrote me and said, hey, thanks for this. And I talked about, this is like, I did this back in June, July, and I talked about, excuse me, the pot stocks being cheap. And you can see here, they've started to move up. Now there's talk that the United States is going to downgrade the type of drug that it is, basically almost decriminalize marijuana or cannabis, and that's probably the first step to legalization. I think legalization, you'll see a big push probably next year going to the election. I think if Biden especially struggling in the polls, he'll make that an election issue as an attempt to get elected. That was one of the reasons Trudeau initially got elected. Like, I know people in Canada, that was like their issue. Like, I really don't care about cannabis or smoking it, or it does have medical attributes, obviously, but it's not, legalization of cannabis is not one of my issues. Even though I'm a libertarian, I know a lot of libertarians, that's their number one issue, is like legalization of drugs. And being a libertarian, I do think drugs should be legalized, but it's not like something that keeps me up at night, because I don't do any drugs at all. I like to have a few drinks, and that's about it. So, but you can see here, we broke through this kind of support here. And if we can kind of break these May highs, this is PodX, this is the Cannabis ETF, we'll probably really be off to the races then. And then those May highs will basically take us to the 200-day moving average as well. And, if you remember, I said that the ultimate bubble stock was CGC, and I own this, by the way, just the disclosure. You can see CTC broke its resistance and kind of is broken out here. A lot of people thought CGC was going to, or Cannabis Growth was going to go bankrupt. And I think that's why the stock fell so hard. They've had some bad earnings. I think they are going to survive. And this is a wonderful basing formation and now breakout. Exactly what you want to see. And I got a couple others. It's for my lifetime members, so I'm not going to mention all the stocks and the whatnot that we own, but a lot of the cannabis stocks look like this. So I think that the second chart of the day here is kind of the cannabis breakout. Now, the issue we have right now is it does look like some of the market is rolling over. So the question is, can these, but like these stocks have gone down for years. We'll get a 3-year chart of CGC so you can see it. This stock has gone from, like $60 a share in 2021 to 50 cents. So, in 2021, the market boomed. Obviously, last year there was a bear market. And then this year, the first half of this year, the market boomed. So really, and if we go look at PodX, the ETF, it's the same way. So really does, like it looks exactly the same in 2021 as it did in 2022. That was a bull market. This was a bear market. And the first half of this year was a bull market. So does it really matter if the market rolls over? Now, if there's some kind of crash, everything's going to go down, right? But if it's just like a slow decline, like 2022, I think that these stocks can now buck the trend, and they look like they might be a sector that goes higher. And you know, they were going lower where the market was going higher, right? So why not? So the last chart of the day we're going to have is the QQQ, so the Nasdaq. So it looks to me we could be peaking. I thought we came up so high that that we're probably, this was a new bull market, but now it's kind of starting to feel like 1937. The breadth is deteriorating. Obviously interest rates are staying higher. In 1937, what happened, for those of you who don't know, there was a correction about 15 to 20% in the market, and then the market almost went back to the highs. I'll probably get it right now. 1937 stock market. We're gonna go look at it right now. Get some images up here. Yeah, so you can see in like 1937. I want to find a good chart. Yeah, I see, you can see it right here. So this is the 37 market here, this blue line. And you can see the market went almost back to the highs and then completely fell apart. Now, I don't know if we're going to fall apart like that, but it's kind of like similar, but it's just taking longer. And 37, the decline was like 3-4 months. The rally was like 2 months. And then the next decline was again another about 3 to 4 months. So now we've seen the decline was almost a year. And now the rally's been about, 8 or 9 months. So maybe it's just a longer version of that. But the question is, are we in a similar situation that we were in the fourth quarter of last year when the Nasdaq kind of peaked out, and are we peaking out? So that's why I'm really defensive now. If we're entering, we're in the, the first week of September sold off like I thought it might after Labor Day. So we're in that September, October kind of correction crash period. So I'm just, my opinion is, well, what's the worst case scenario? Oh, we break out and go back to the highs. Well, at this point, you're talking that's 5, 6, 7%. So I missed 5, 6, 7%. Who really cares? But if I'm right, or if I don't even think who cares about being right or wrong? If the market tanks, I think right now the market has a downside going to the lows of last year, which is, 30% on the Nasdaq, and has 6 or 7% upside in the next 2-3 months. So I know I want to take that, and it doesn't have to necessarily, by the way, like crash. Like it could be like the fourth quarter of 2000. If we go look at the fourth quarter of 2000, we're going to go look at the fourth quarter of 2000 right now. So we're going to start in 1999. So you'll see the bubble and bust, and then we'll go to 2000. Actually, I'll go to 2001. So then you can see it here. So yeah, we can see it here. And in the fourth quarter of 2000, look what happened. Like there was a rally, kind of like now, not too close to highs, but still there was a rally. And then again, right around that September period, the market sold off, and it didn't crash, but there was just a good size, and the S&P went down a lot less. We'll look at that quickly. Yeah, and there was just a kind of this correction, the entire year. And then there was a little bounce in January the next year, and then it kept falling really to March. So if we're in this kind of decline that takes us into the spring of next year, just a slow kind of grind, Chinese water torture, well, that tells me, that again, that actually is kind of the decline I would prefer. Like it's tougher to trade that kind of decline. It's tougher to be short that kind of decline. But with that kind of decline, it means stuff like some of the beaten up stocks that I have for my lifetime members, and the cannabis stocks, they probably continue to rally in that kind of decline. Well, tech stocks and the whatnot go, Apple and NVIDIA, et cetera, go lower. So anyhow, that's just kind of an interesting scenario here. And if you remember, in 2000, the Fed was raising rates, then they stopped. They'll probably stop sometime, in the second half of this year. And they've virtually stopped anyhow. Like the last, they, half of the year, maybe they did a 0.5 point total. Like basically they've slowed down a great deal. But like, for example, if we go look at again, let's go, might as well do this. This is the IRX, in 2000, you can see the interest rates are going higher. Then the Fed started to cut, in 2001, but the short-term rates actually moved lower into that cut, right? So same thing, the interest rates were moving higher basically all the way into October of 2000, and the market that finally started to hit the market, and it started to roll over. So if we go look at the IRX today, you'll see a very similar pattern. Like we are basically continued to move higher on short-term rates, even though it's kind of flattened out a bit, but they're still moving higher. So is it like, again, like 2000, are we going to continue to, rates go, stay high or move higher into the end of the year? Then finally something breaks in the economy or the markets or whatever, and the Fed finally cuts, kind of like they did in 2001. Maybe they do that next year in 2024. So anyhow, I'm going to leave it on that. I hope you enjoyed this. I think, I hope you like your 3-for-1 special. And yeah, I'll really try in the future to do one every day. But the problem is on the island, sometimes I run into snags. I got to do something on my house, and then like nothing here is close. And it's like having a house on the island is a job in itself. I hope you understand that. So anyhow, everybody take care. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing this one, and I hope you liked it. And I hope you liked some of the historical charts we have and the whatnot. So everybody have a great weekend. And I'm really excited. I'm a big football fan. It may seem stupid to some of you, but it is a big part of my life. I'm even doing a small little football stream podcast as a side kind of fun gig, and setting up a little football website about the Raiders as a fun side thing. I wanted to launch it for the season start, but it just didn't happen. So everything in life takes longer than expected, but I'm hoping to have it after the second week of the season. So around the 18th or 19th, basically in a week's time. So everybody take care. And I'll blast that out once. I'm not going to, this is this email list, all my subscribers. This is for, Addicted to Profits, stock chart of the day. But, I think you'll like reading some of these articles. Are going to be, I think a lot of people like my little beach thing where I talked about sports, meeting that NFL player, that lives down the road from me. So take care, everybody. And go Raiders.